I should have known something was wrong when Elena started wearing perfume to work meetings at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. But I was too busy sanding down a mahogany dining table in my workshop, sawdust coating my fingers like the remnants of a marriage I thought was solid. My name is David Chen. Wait, scratch that. David Miller. I'm 32. I build custom furniture for people who can afford to pay triple what IKEA charges, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought my wife loved me. The coastal town of Millbrook, Maine, has this way of making everyone's business public property. It's the kind of place where old money lives in Victorian houses on the hill, and guys like me fix their antique chairs while living paycheck to paycheck. Elena always said she married beneath her station. I used to think she was joking. "David, I'm going out with the team tonight," Elena called from upstairs, her voice carrying that practiced casualness she'd perfected over the past few months. "Big client presentation tomorrow." I set down my sandpaper and wiped my hands on my jeans. Elena worked at Prestige PR, the only high-end firm in town, where she'd clawed her way up to senior account manager through sheer ruthlessness disguised as charm. She was good at her job, maybe too good. "Which client?" I asked, climbing the stairs to our bedroom. She was standing in front of our mirror, applying lipstick the color of fresh blood. "The Hartwell Foundation. You know, the charity thing. I knew the Hartwell Foundation. Old family money trying to buy a clean conscience through tax-deductible donations. Elena had been working their account for months, staying late, weekend calls, the whole routine. "Want me to pick you up later?" I offered, though I already knew the answer. "No, Jenna's driving." "Don't wait up. Jenna Walsh, Elena's best friend since college, also at Prestige PR, also single, also the type of woman who collected men's attention like trophies. I'd never liked her, but Elena worshipped the ground her Louboutin heels clicked across. After Elena left in a cloud of expensive perfume, I called my buddy Derek. "Want to grab a beer at Murphy's?" I asked. "Sure thing, man." "Rough day?" Derek owned a tow truck service and had the kind of street-level intelligence network that would make the FBI jealous. If something was happening in Millbrook, Derek knew about it before the local newspaper. Murphy's Tavern sat in the old part of town, where the paint peeled off buildings like sunburned skin, and the locals drank away their disappointments. It was exactly the kind of place Elena's crowd would never set foot in, which made it perfect for what I needed. "So what's eating you?" Derek asked, sliding a beer across the scarred wooden table. "Probably nothing. Just, Elena's been different lately." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Working late, new clothes, that perfume thing, you know." "Want me to check it out?" That's the thing about Derek. He never made you feel pathetic for asking. "Maybe just swing by Coastal, see if her car's there." Coastal was the upscale bar where Elena's work crowd liked to pretend they were sophisticated. All exposed brick and overpriced cocktails, the kind of place that charged $15 for a whiskey and called it artisanal. Derek was back in an hour, and his face told me everything I needed to know. "She's there," he said, sliding into the booth. "But David, she's not with the work crowd." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Some guy. Tall, expensive suit, driving a BMW. They were pretty cozy in a corner booth." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Describe him." "Dark hair, maybe 35. Looks like he spends more on his haircut than I make in a week." They were holding hands under the table. The cold feeling spread through my entire body. "Did you get a name?" asked the bartender. "Guy's name is Ronan Pierce. Works at some marketing firm downtown." Ronan Pierce. I'd heard Elena mention that name before. Always in passing. Always casual. Just a colleague, she'd said. Just business. I drove home in a haze, my mind racing through months of small details that suddenly made perfect sense. The new lingerie I'd found in the laundry, the way she'd started locking her phone, the mysterious phone calls she'd take in the other room. Elena came home at midnight, smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "How was the meeting?" I asked from the couch, where I'd been sitting in the dark for 2 hours. "Fine," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Long, but productive." "Funny thing," I said, keeping my voice level. "I called the office around 10. Asked for you. They said everyone left hours ago." Elena froze halfway up the stairs. We went to Coastal afterward. Team bonding. With Ronan Pierce?" The color drained from her face. "How do you know about your boyfriend?" Lucky guess. The next morning, Elena tried to pretend nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed while she got ready for work, played the part of the dutiful wife with Academy Award precision. But I'd seen behind the curtain now, and the show looked pathetic. "We need to talk," I said as she grabbed her keys. "I'm late for work, David. Can it wait?" "No, it can't wait. Sit down." Something in my voice made her comply. Elena perched on the edge of our kitchen chair like a bird ready to fly, her manicured fingers drumming against the table. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "Don't insult my intelligence. How long have you been sleeping with Ronan Pierce?" Elena's face went through several expressions: surprise, denial, calculation, before settling on defiance. "I don't know what you think you saw." "I didn't see anything. Derek did. You and your boyfriend, holding hands at Coastal, looking very much like two people who've been fucking behind my back." She flinched at the crude language. Elena hated when I talked like the blue-collar guy I was instead of the refined husband she wanted me to be. "It's not what you think," she said finally. "Really?" "Because what I think is that my wife has been cheating on me with some marketing asshole while I've been working 16-hour days to pay for this house. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work, so you decided to fuck your way through it." Elena's mask finally slipped. At least Ronan understands ambition. At least he's going somewhere with his life. There it was, the truth, sharp and clean as a blade between the ribs. "Unlike your loser husband who builds furniture for a living." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. "How long, Elena?" She was quiet for a long moment. 3 months. 3 months. While I'd been planning our anniversary dinner. While I'd been setting aside money for the vacation she'd wanted. While I'd been living in a marriage that existed only in my imagination. "Are you in love with him?" "David, please, answer the question." "Yes." The word came out as barely a whisper. I nodded slowly. "Then I guess we're done here." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just another performance. "It doesn't have to end like this. We could try counseling." "With your boyfriend? That's generous of you." "Ronan doesn't know about this conversation. We could what? Pretend the last 3 months didn't happen? Pretend I don't know you've been lying to my face every single day?" She stood up abruptly. "I need to get to work." "I'm sure Ronan's waiting." Elena grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I never meant for it to happen. But you're glad it did." She didn't answer, which was answer enough. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at the custom cabinets I'd built when we first bought the house. Elena had wanted cherry wood with brass hardware, something that would photograph well for the home tours she'd planned to give once we made it into Millbrook's social circle. I'd spent 3 weekends installing those cabinets, measuring twice and cutting once, making sure every joint was perfect. Elena had barely looked at them when I finished. That's when I realized something important. I'd been playing by the wrong rules this entire time. I'd been the faithful husband, the hard worker, the guy who fixed things and kept quiet and tried to be worthy of a woman who'd been shopping for my replacement. Well, if Elena wanted to play games, I could learn the rules. I called Derek. "How do you feel about doing a little reconnaissance work?" Derek picked me up in his tow truck an hour later. "Where are we going?" "Prestige PR." I want to see this Ronan Pierce for myself. The Prestige PR building sat in Millbrook's gentrified downtown, all glass and steel trying to look important. Elena's BMW was in the parking lot next to a silver BMW that had to be Ronan's. "That's him," Derek said, pointing to a man walking out of the building. Ronan Pierce looked exactly like Elena's type, tall, polished, the kind of guy who'd never had sawdust under his fingernails or worried about making rent. He wore his success like expensive cologne, obvious and overwhelming. "He looks like a real winner," I said. "Want me to accidentally back into his car?" "Not yet, but keep that option open." We followed Ronan to a coffee shop where he met with a woman I didn't recognize. They sat outside, and even from across the street, I could see the easy intimacy between them. This wasn't a business meeting. "Son of a bitch is cheating on my wife while he's cheating with my wife," I said. Poetic justice. Something like that. I spent the next week learning everything I could about Ronan Pierce. It wasn't hard. The guy had the kind of ego that demanded public attention. Social media profiles full of gym selfies and expensive restaurants. A marketing consultancy that specialized in brand rehabilitation for companies with image problems. A downtown apartment in the new luxury complex that charged more per month than I made in 3. But the most interesting thing I learned came from Derek's network of bartenders, mechanics, and other invisible people who kept the town running. "Your boy Ronan's got some interesting clients," Derek told me over coffee at Murphy's. "Such as? Remember the seaside casino project that got shut down last year? Environmental concerns?" "Yeah. Ronan's firm was hired to make that go away. They organized fake grassroots support, paid off local influencers, the whole dirty tricks playbook. But it didn't work. Because someone leaked their strategy to the environmental groups. Cost Ronan's firm about $50,000 in fees, plus their reputation took a hit. I filed that information away. In my experience, everyone had pressure points. You just had to know where to push." That night, Elena came home late again, full of apologies and explanations that sounded rehearsed. I played the part of the understanding husband, nodding and making sympathetic noises while she described her fictional day. "How's the Hartwell Foundation account going?" I asked. "Good. Really good. We're making great progress." "That's great, honey. You work so hard." Elena smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married. Then her phone buzzed, and her attention snapped to the screen like a fish to a lure. "Work?" I asked. "Yeah. Crisis with the Morrison account." She typed quickly, her fingers flying across the screen. I caught a glimpse of the contact name. R. "I should probably go handle this," she said, already reaching for her keys. "At 9 p.m.? PR never sleeps, you know that." After she left, I went down to my workshop and started planning. Elena thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. She was about to learn that I'd been studying the board a lot longer than she realized. I made a list of everyone in Elena's social circle. Her work friends, her college buddies, the women she went to yoga with. Then I made another list of everyone who might have a reason to dislike Elena or Ronan. The second list was longer than I'd expected. Elena had a talent for making enemies. She collected them like other people collected stamps, through casual cruelty disguised as honesty, through stepping on people on her way up the ladder, through the kind of social climbing that left claw marks. And Ronan? Ronan had pissed off half the business community with his ethical flexibility, and the other half with his arrogance. I started making phone calls. "Hi, Mrs. Patterson. This is David Miller, Elena's husband. I was wondering if you had a few minutes to chat about the charity auction committee." Mrs. Patterson had been on the hospital fundraising board until Elena had her removed for ineffective leadership. She was very interested in chatting. "Jennifer? It's David Miller. I heard about what happened with the Morrison contract. That must have been frustrating." Jennifer Walsh had lost a major client to Prestige PR after Ronan had convinced them that her firm was too small town for their needs. She had quite a lot to say about Ronan's business practices. By the end of the week, I had a network that would have impressed Elena. The difference was, my network was built on shared grievances instead of shared ambitions, and grievances, I was learning, were much more powerful. The opportunity came sooner than I'd expected. Elena was working late again, or pretending to, and I was in Murphy's Tavern when I overheard something interesting. "Yeah, Pierce's BMW got towed from the fire lane at Coastal," one of the regulars was saying. "Asshole parks wherever he wants, thinks his money makes him special." I looked at Derek. "Your company tow that car?" "Nope, city contract. But I know the guy who did." An hour later, I had Ronan Pierce's home address, his license plate number, and a detailed description of his parking habits. More importantly, I had a plan. Ronan lived in Harbor View Towers, the kind of building that had a doorman and charged extra for the privilege of living above the common people. His BMW sat in the underground garage like a silver trophy, pristine and expensive and just begging for attention. I didn't slash his tires or key his paint. That would have been obvious, traceable, the kind of thing a jealous husband might do. Instead, I did something much more subtle. I loosened the valve caps on all 4 tires, just enough to cause a slow leak. By morning, his car would be sitting on 4 flat tires with no obvious cause. Then I placed a small pebble under each valve cap and tightened them back down. The beauty of it was the diagnosis. Any mechanic would find the pebbles eventually, but it would take time, and Ronan would spend hours wondering who had done it and why. But that was just the appetizer. The next morning, I called Prestige PR. "Hi, this is David Miller from Miller Custom Furniture. I'm calling about the Hartwell Foundation account." "One moment, please." Elena came on the line, her voice professionally cheerful. "David?" What a surprise. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I was just wondering if you could put me in touch with whoever's handling their furniture needs. I heard they're renovating their offices." There was a pause. "I don't think they're looking for furniture right now." "That's strange. I just got off the phone with Mrs. Hartwell, and she specifically mentioned needing custom pieces for their conference room." Another pause, longer this time. Let me check with the team and get back to you." "Thanks, honey. Oh, and tell Ronan I said hello." I hung up before she could respond. The thing about lies is that they require maintenance. Elena had built her deception on the foundation of the Hartwell Foundation account, but she'd never bothered to check if I knew the Hartwells personally. I did. I'd built a dining room set for them 2 years ago, and Mrs. Hartwell had been very complimentary about my work. She'd also mentioned that they'd never worked with Prestige PR. Elena's entire cover story was fiction. My phone rang 20 minutes later. "David, we need to talk." "About what?" "You know what. Come to my office. Now." "I'm working." "Can it wait?" "No, it cannot wait." I smiled. "I'll be there in an hour." Prestige PR's offices were designed to intimidate. Marble floors, abstract art, furniture that looked expensive but uncomfortable. The receptionist directed me to Elena's office, where I found my wife pacing behind her desk like a caged animal. "Close the door," she said. I complied, then took a seat in one of her uncomfortable chairs. "Nice office. Very sterile." "What did you say to Mrs. Hartwell?" "Nothing much. Just asked about furniture." "David, the Hartwells aren't our clients." "I know." Elena stopped pacing. "You know?" "I've known for weeks." "The question is, what are you really doing when you say you're working late?" Her face went pale. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're fucking Ronan Pierce, and you're using fake client meetings as cover. Keep your voice down." "Why? Afraid your coworkers will hear? Afraid they'll find out the golden girl has been lying about her accounts? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Stop. Just stop with the excuses." I stood up. "I understand perfectly. You wanted something more exciting than your boring husband, so you found it. Just own it. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. What do you want? Nothing. I just wanted to see if you'd keep lying to my face. And you did. Which tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Elena? You might want to check with Ronan about his car. I heard he had some trouble this morning. The look of confusion on her face was worth the price of admission. Elena came home that night ready for war. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows and stormed into the living room where I was watching television. What did you do to Ronan's car? I looked up from the screen. Hello to you too, dear. How was your day? Don't play games with me, David. Ronan's car had 4 flat tires this morning, and then you show up at my office asking about fake clients. That's not a coincidence. You're right. It's not a coincidence. It's cause and effect. What's that supposed to mean? I turned off the television and gave her my full attention. It means actions have consequences. You cheat on me, lie to me, humiliate me, and then act surprised when there's pushback. You can't what? Defend myself. Fight back? Sorry, Elena, but I'm not going to be your convenient doormat anymore. She crossed her arms. Ronan could press charges. For what? 4 flat tires? Good luck proving I had anything to do with it. Everyone will know it was you. Will they? Because from where I sit, Ronan Pierce has made a lot of enemies in this town. Could have been anyone. Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw her face soften. Let me guess. Ronan needs comforting after his terrible day? He's upset. I'm sure he is. Nothing worse than having your perfect life disrupted by a little inconvenience. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference, though. I understand why you might not recognize it. Elena headed for the stairs. I'm going out. To comfort your boyfriend? To get away from you? After she left, I called Derek. Phase 2? What do you need? Everything you can find on Ronan Pierce's business. Client lists, contracts, anything that might be interesting. Legal or illegal? Completely legal. I'm not trying to destroy the guy, just level the playing field. Derek's network came through again. By the end of the week, I had a complete picture of Ronan's business practices, and it wasn't pretty. Ronan specialized in reputation management for companies that deserved their bad reputations. He'd helped a pharmaceutical company downplay their opioid connections. He'd created fake grassroots campaigns for oil companies fighting environmental regulations. He'd even worked with a private prison corporation to improve their public image. But the most interesting client was Morrison Industries, a local manufacturing company that had been accused of dumping chemicals in Millbrook Bay. Morrison Industries was also Jennifer Walsh's former client, the one she'd lost to Prestige PR. I called Jennifer and asked if she'd like to meet for coffee. I've been thinking about our conversation, I told her over lattes at the coffee shop downtown. About Morrison Industries and how they ended up with Prestige PR. What about it? Well, it seems like they hired Ronan specifically to make their environmental problems disappear. That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? Jennifer's eyes narrowed. What kind of coincidence? The kind where a company dumps chemicals in the bay, gets bad press, and then suddenly needs a reputation management expert who specializes in making environmental concerns go away. Are you suggesting Ronan knew about the dumping before it became public? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just noting the timeline. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. That would be insider information. If Ronan knew Morrison was going to need reputation management before the story broke, that would be quite an advantage in pitching their business, wouldn't it? It would also be unethical as hell. I shrugged. I wouldn't know. I just build furniture. But Jennifer knew, and more importantly, Jennifer knew people at the environmental groups that had been fighting Morrison Industries. People who might be very interested in how Ronan Pierce had ended up with that contract. I went home feeling satisfied with my day's work. Elena was already there, cooking dinner like she was trying out for the role of devoted wife. She'd changed into one of my favorite dresses, done her hair the way I liked it, even opened a bottle of the wine we'd been saving for a special occasion. "What's all this?" I asked. "I thought we should talk. Really talk, without all the anger and accusations." I sat down at the kitchen table and watched her move around our kitchen with practiced efficiency. "Okay, let's talk. I know you're hurt. I know I've made mistakes. But David, we can work through this. Can we? If we both want to." She set a plate in front of me, chicken marsala, my favorite. "I've been thinking about what you said, about pressure and excuses. You're right. I haven't been fair to you. Or honest. She sat down across from me. But I want to be. I want to fix this." I took a bite of the chicken. It was perfect, of course. Elena was good at everything she put her mind to, including manipulation. "What about Ronan? What about him? Are you going to stop seeing him?" Elena hesitated just long enough to give me my answer. "It's complicated." "No, it's not. It's actually very simple. Either you want to be married to me or you want to be with him. Pick one. I need time to think." "How much time?" "I don't know." I nodded and continued eating. The chicken was delicious, but it tasted like ash in my mouth. "David?" "Yeah?" "What happened to Ronan's car? That can't happen again." "Why not?" "Because it's childish and destructive and effective." Elena's mask slipped for just a moment. "It's making things harder." "For who? You or him?" "For all of us." I finished my dinner and stood up. "Thanks for cooking. It was really good." "Where are you going?" "Workshop. I've got a project to finish." "David, we're not done talking." I paused at the kitchen door. "Yes, we are." "You want time to think? Take all the time you need. But understand that while you're thinking, I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to decide if I'm worth keeping." "What does that mean?" "It means the game has changed, Elena. You just haven't figured out the new rules yet." The environmental story broke on a Tuesday morning. The Millbrook Gazette ran a front-page article about Morrison Industries' chemical dumping, complete with internal documents showing that company executives had known about the contamination for months before it became public. But the real bombshell was buried in the third paragraph. Evidence that Ronan Pierce had been in contact with Morrison Industries weeks before the story broke, suggesting possible insider knowledge of the environmental violations. I was drinking coffee in Murphy's Tavern when the paper hit the stands. Derek slid into the booth across from me with a grin on his face. "Your friend Jennifer does good work." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Right. Pure coincidence that she happened to have all those documents." "Environmental groups are very thorough." My phone rang. "Elena." "Did you see the paper?" "Yeah. Rough day for Ronan, I imagine." "David, did I what?" "Write the article?" "I'm flattered, but I think you're overestimating my journalism skills. This isn't a joke. Ronan could lose his business over this. That would be terrible. A man who helps polluters cover up their crimes might face consequences for his actions. Where's the justice in that? You son of a bitch." "Careful, Elena. Your mask is slipping." She hung up. An hour later, she called back. "We need to meet." "Why?" "Because this has gone too far." "Has it?" "From where I sit, it's just getting started." "David, please, let's meet somewhere neutral, just to talk." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at Coastal, the same upscale bar where Elena had been carrying on her affair. The irony wasn't lost on me. Elena was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth nursing a martini. She looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "What do you want, Elena?" "I want this to stop." "What, specifically?" "The games. The revenge, the whatever you're doing to Ronan. I ordered a beer and studied my wife's face. I'm not doing anything to Ronan. I'm just living my life. Bullshit. The car, the Morrison story. The Morrison story is about corporate malfeasance and environmental crime. Are you saying you support chemical dumping? I'm saying you orchestrated this to hurt Ronan. Even if that were true, so what? Ronan's been hurting me for months. Turnabout is fair play. Elena leaned forward. What do you want? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want. Just stop this. I want my wife back. But she doesn't exist anymore, does she? Maybe she never did. David, no. Let me finish. You want to know what I want? I want you to own what you've done. I want you to stop pretending you're the victim here. I want you to admit that you chose this. I never meant for it to happen. But you're glad it did. You said so yourself. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Yes. Then we're done here. I stood to leave, but Elena grabbed my arm. It doesn't have to end like this. Yes, it does. You made that choice when you decided I wasn't enough for you. Ronan doesn't deserve what you're doing to him. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. And I didn't deserve what you did to me. But here we are. He could lose everything. So did I. I pulled free from her grip and walked away, leaving her sitting alone in the booth where she'd planned her betrayal. Outside, the evening air was cold and sharp, carrying the smell of salt and seaweed from the harbor. I walked down to the waterfront and stood looking out at the dark water, thinking about the last few months and how much everything had changed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Ronan Pierce wanted a meeting. I smiled and typed back. Murphy's Tavern, 1 hour. It was time to meet my wife's boyfriend face to face. Ronan Pierce looked like a man who'd been hit by a truck. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his eyes had the hollow look of someone who'd been staring at the ceiling for days. He found me in the back booth at Murphy's, the same booth where I'd been planning his downfall for weeks. The irony was delicious. David Miller? He asked, though he clearly knew who I was. That's me. You must be Ronan. Elena's told me so much about you. He slid into the booth across from me, his movements careful and controlled. We need to talk. So talk. Ronan glanced around the bar, taking in the peeling paint and neon beer signs. This isn't exactly my usual scene. I know, that's why I chose it. He tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Look, I know this situation is complicated. Complicated. That's one word for it. I want you to know that Elena and I never meant for things to happen the way they did. I took a sip of my beer and studied his face. How did you mean for them to happen? I don't know. Different. Better. Better for who? Ronan was quiet for a moment. I know you're angry. Do you? And I know you're behind what's been happening to me. What's been happening to you? The car. The Morrison story. Don't insult my intelligence. I leaned back in my seat. You know what insulted my intelligence? Finding out my wife was fucking her coworker while I was working 16-hour days to pay for our life. Ronan flinched. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Elena was unhappy. She felt trapped, unappreciated. So you decided to help her feel better? It just happened. Bullshit. Cheating doesn't just happen. It's a choice, a series of choices. You chose to pursue a married woman, and she chose to let you. Ronan ran a hand through his hair. You're right. I'm not trying to excuse what we did. Then what are you trying to do? I'm trying to find a way forward that doesn't destroy everyone involved. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. A little late for that, don't you think? The Morrison story could ruin me. It should. You helped a company cover up environmental crimes. I provided reputation management services. That's not illegal. Neither is what I'm doing to you. Ronan leaned forward. What do you want? Money. I can pay you. Stop right there. My voice was low and dangerous. You think this is about money? Then what? It's about consequences. You wanted my wife, you got her. But you also got me, and I'm not the pushover you thought I was. Elena said you were a good man. I was. But good men finish last, don't they? So I decided to stop being good. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? Now? Now you get to find out what it feels like to have your life turned upside down by someone you underestimated. And Elena? Elena made her choice. She chose you over me, excitement over stability, lies over truth. She can live with the consequences. She loves you. I almost laughed. No, she doesn't. She loves the idea of me, the security I represented, the safety net I provided while she figured out what she really wanted. But she doesn't love me. You're wrong. Am I? Then why is she with you? Ronan didn't have an answer for that. I finished my beer and stood up. This has been illuminating, but I have work to do. David, wait. Ronan grabbed my arm, just like Elena had done earlier. This doesn't have to be a war. I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. Yes, it does. You started it when you decided to fuck my wife. I'm just finishing it. I could fight back. You could try. But ask yourself this. What do you know about me, really? Elena probably told you I was some harmless blue-collar guy who wouldn't cause trouble. How's that working out for you? I pulled free from his grip and walked away, leaving him alone with his expensive clothes and his expensive problems. Outside, I called Derek. How'd it go? Better than expected. He's scared. Good. What's next? Phase 3, which is public humiliation. It's time for Elena and Ronan to face the music. The annual Millbrook Harbor Festival was coming up in 2 weeks. The whole town would be there, including everyone in Elena's social circle and Ronan's business network. It was the perfect stage for the final act of this little drama. The Millbrook Harbor Festival was the social event of the year, a celebration of the town's maritime heritage that had evolved into an excuse for the wealthy to see and be seen. Local businesses set up booths, politicians gave speeches, and everyone who mattered in Millbrook society made an appearance. Elena had been looking forward to it for months. It was her chance to network, to show off, to play the part of the successful PR executive married to the quaint furniture maker. She'd bought a new dress, made reservations at the best restaurant in town, planned her entire weekend around being seen at the right parties with the right people. I had different plans. The festival opened on Friday evening with a cocktail party at the yacht club. Elena spent an hour getting ready, transforming herself into the polished professional she wanted the world to see. Are you sure you want to go to this? She asked as we drove to the club. It's mostly work people. I'm sure. It'll be fun to meet your colleagues. Elena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. David, about Ronan. What about him? He'll be there tonight. With the Morrison situation, things are tense. I'm sure they are. I just don't want any drama. I looked out the window at the harbor, where expensive boats bobbed at their moorings like floating symbols of wealth and privilege. Don't worry, Elena. I'll be on my best behavior. The yacht club was exactly what I'd expected. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, and the kind of people who thought their money made them interesting. Elena immediately started working the room, introducing me to clients and colleagues with the practiced ease of a professional networker. This is my husband, David, she'd say. He's an artisan. Makes beautiful furniture. Artisan. Not carpenter, not furniture maker, but artisan. It sounded more sophisticated, more worthy of her social circle. I played my part, shaking hands and making small talk, letting people dismiss me as Elena's harmless blue-collar husband. It was a role I'd perfected over the years, and it served my purposes perfectly. Ronan arrived an hour into the party, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The Morrison story had done its work. I could see it in the way people's conversations died when he approached, in the polite but distant smiles he received, in the way potential clients suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. Elena made her way over to him, and I watched them have a tense, whispered conversation near the bar. From across the room, they looked like what they were, two people whose secret was eating them alive. Trouble in paradise? I turned to find Jennifer Walsh beside me, a knowing smile on her face. I wouldn't know, I said. I just make furniture. Right. Just like I just lost a client to unethical business practices. The Morrison thing must have been satisfying. Very. Amazing how these things have a way of working themselves out. We stood together, watching Elena and Ronan try to navigate the social minefield their affair had created. She looks stressed, Jennifer observed. Marriage is hard work, especially when you're married to more than one person. I glanced at her. Meaning? Meaning your wife's been playing house with Ronan Pierce for months, and now that it's becoming public knowledge, she's realizing there are consequences. Is it becoming public knowledge? Jennifer smiled. In a town this size? Please, everyone knows. They're just too polite to say anything to your face. That was exactly what I'd been counting on. The evening progressed with painful predictability. Elena worked harder and harder to maintain her composure, while Ronan grew more isolated. I made conversation with environmental activists who were very interested in discussing the Morrison Industries case. I chatted with business owners who had strong opinions about reputation management firms that helped polluters. By the time we left, Elena looked exhausted. How do you think that went? I asked as we drove home. Fine. It went fine. Ronan seemed uncomfortable. He's dealing with a lot right now. The Morrison thing? Elena was quiet for a moment. Among other things. Such as? David, please. Not tonight. But I wasn't done. I met some interesting people tonight. The Hendersons, who lost their waterfront property values because of Morrison's dumping. The Garcias, whose fishing business was hurt by the contamination. They had some very strong opinions about the people who helped Morrison cover it up. Ronan didn't cover anything up, didn't he? Because from what I heard tonight, he was in contact with Morrison executives before the story broke. That sounds like inside information to me. Elena pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. You're enjoying this. Enjoying what? Watching him suffer. Watching me suffer. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. You know what I enjoyed? The look on Mrs. Patterson's face when she realized you'd been lying about the Hartwell Foundation account. The way the Morrisons' lawyer suddenly found somewhere else to be when Ronan tried to talk to him. The whispers that followed you around the room. You orchestrated this. I didn't have to. You and Ronan did all the work. I just provided the stage. Elena got out of the car and slammed the door. You're not the man I married. Neither are you. Saturday's festival events were held downtown, with booths lining Harbor Street and a main stage set up in the town square. Elena had volunteered to help with the PR for the event, which meant she spent the day managing logistics while trying to avoid the increasingly obvious stares and whispers of the townspeople. I set up a small booth showcasing my furniture, partly for business and partly to have a front row seat for the show. From my vantage point, I could see Elena rushing around with her clipboard, her smile growing more strained with each passing hour. Ronan showed up around noon, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He tried to approach Elena several times, but she kept finding excuses to be somewhere else. Their affair was becoming a liability she couldn't afford. The real entertainment started when Mrs. Morrison arrived. Mrs. Morrison was the wife of Morrison Industries' CEO, a woman who'd built her social standing on her husband's business success. She was also, according to Derek's intelligence network, completely unaware of her husband's environmental crimes or his relationship with Ronan Pierce. Until today. I watched from my booth as Mrs. Morrison approached Ronan near the main stage. Their conversation started quietly, but it didn't stay that way. "You knew!" she shouted, her voice carrying across the square. "You knew what my husband was doing, and you helped him hide it!" Ronan tried to calm her down, but Mrs. Morrison was beyond reason. "My family's name is ruined because of you. My children can't show their faces in this town because of what you helped my husband do." A crowd was gathering, phones coming out to record the confrontation. Elena appeared at Ronan's side, trying to defuse the situation, but Mrs. Morrison turned on her too. "And you work with this man. You're just as guilty." "Mrs. Morrison, please," Elena said, her PR training kicking in. "Let's discuss this privately." "Privately? Like you discussed your affair privately? The whole town knows you're sleeping with him." The crowd went silent. Elena's face went white. Ronan looked like he wanted to disappear. Mrs. Morrison wasn't finished. "You people think you can do whatever you want, hurt whoever you want, and there won't be consequences. Well, here are your consequences." She threw her drink in Ronan's face and stormed off, leaving Elena and Ronan standing in front of half the town, soaked and humiliated. I packed up my booth and went home, whistling. Elena didn't come home Saturday night. Or Sunday. I spent the weekend in my workshop, sanding and staining a cherrywood bookshelf, while my phone buzzed with calls and texts I didn't answer. Monday morning, she finally appeared, looking like she'd been through a war. "We need to talk," she said. "Do we?" "David, please. Just, please." I set down my sandpaper and followed her into the house. Elena sat at our kitchen table, the same table where she'd tried to gaslight me about her affair just weeks earlier. "I'm leaving," she said. "Okay. That's it? Just okay?" I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. "What do you want me to say? Fight for you? Beg you to stay?" "We're way past that, Elena. I know you're angry. I'm not angry anymore. Anger requires caring, and I'm fresh out." Elena flinched like I'd slapped her. "You used to love me." "I used to love the woman I thought you were. Turns out she was just a character you played when it suited you. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you started fucking Ronan while I was working myself to death to support your ambitions? Was it fair when you lied to my face every single day for months? Was it fair when you let me believe I was the problem in our marriage?" Elena started crying, but they looked like performance tears. "I never meant for any of this to happen. But you're glad it did. You said so yourself. I don't know what I want anymore." "Sure you do. You want Ronan. You want excitement. You want a life that doesn't include me. So take it. What about the house? Keep it. I never liked it anyway." "David, Elena, stop. Just stop. We're done. You made that choice months ago, and I finally accepted it." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What about you? What will you do?" "I'll figure it out." "I always do." "I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm really sorry." I studied her face, looking for some sign of the woman I'd married, but she was gone. Maybe she'd never existed. "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences, but you're not sorry you did it." Elena didn't deny it. After she left, I called Derek. "How do you feel about a road trip?" "Where to?" "Somewhere that isn't here. I'm thinking Colorado, maybe Montana. Somewhere I can start over." "What about the business?" "What business?" "Half my clients were Elena's social circle. I don't think I'll be getting much work from them anymore. Their loss? Maybe. Or maybe it's exactly what I need." I spent the next week tying up loose ends. I sold what furniture I could, donated the rest, and put the tools I couldn't live without in the back of my truck. The last thing I did was stop by Murphy's Tavern to say goodbye to the regulars and settle my tab. "Heard Elena left town," Murphy said as he poured me a final beer. "Yeah. She and Ronan are starting fresh somewhere else. Good riddance, if you ask me. That woman never appreciated what she had. Maybe not, but that's her loss." I raised my glass in a toast to the bar, the town, and the life I was leaving behind. "To new beginnings," I said. "To new beginnings," Murphy echoed. I finished my beer, left a generous tip, and walked out into the Maine evening. Tomorrow I'd be gone, driving west toward whatever came next. But tonight, I stood on Harbor Street and looked out at the water, thinking about revenge and consequences and the price of underestimating people. Elena had wanted excitement, drama, a life bigger than the one we'd built together. She got it, along with public humiliation, professional ruin, and a boyfriend whose reputation was as toxic as the chemicals Morrison Industries had dumped in the bay. Ronan had wanted a successful man's wife and the thrill of taking something that belonged to someone else. He got Elena, along with a destroyed business, social exile, and the knowledge that everyone in town knew exactly what kind of man he was. And me? I'd wanted my wife back, my marriage intact, my life the way it used to be. Instead, I got something better. I got free. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, and drove away from Millbrook without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I could see the harbor lights reflecting off the dark water, beautiful and distant as a dream I'd finally woken up from. Elena had been right about one thing. I wasn't the man she'd married. I was better.